Months ago, I purchased and beat the game Zone of the Enders, and Zone of the Enders Second Runner, or Anubis as it's called in Japan. Among the gameplay, story, and art style, one thing that the game nails is the atmosphere. Atmosphere is composed of two things, visuals and audio, but it's more complex than that. Audio can be separated into voices, sounds, and music. Visuals are amalgamations of shapes and colors. When you first skip the trailer animation the game presents you with, you're on this bright title screen for the HD edition, with the background being pale white with silver lines that stretch into the center of the screen whilst mechanically bending. The calm, sedated music is simultaneously ominous and filled with anticipation. Going deeper into the menus, you're presented with two options. You play the regular Zone of the Enders or play Zone of the Enders Second Runner. There are two distinctively different themes and art for it. For the first game, you're presented with this blue line art of Jehudi, the mech you'll be using for the game. The theme is twice as ominous as the last one before it, as if you're witnessing a moon-sized mechanical eye stalk the Earth for space. In context of the story, it's even better in my opinion, since this is your first time entering a war, piloting an apex predator called the Orbital Frame. The theme 4 in this menu feels more tired in comparison to Zone of the Enders 1. Paired with the art of a beaten up Anubis, it feels like the end of a battle within the ending slope of a huge war. This is amplified by the context of the game's story, and here it's a return to Jehudi but with an experienced and older pilot. In fact, still much older than the previous one within the story of Second Runner. Going into the first game, we're presented with the menu and title screen for Zone of the Enders 1 itself. The bronze texture, the grey Egyptian text, the acapella in the background of a woman singing, perhaps in Egyptian itself. This makes it feels like a great journey concerning something ancient awaits the player. To cover the game's atmosphere in its entirety, I think I'll start at the beginning of the game and then some. When we exit the hangar for where the game starts, we're greeted to a beautiful sight around us. Everything feels industrial but distinct. The color you'll usually be seeing a lot is a hue of blue. But this is from the sky. Descending to the ground, everything assumes its natural color. But what's more noticeable is how it resembles a real industrial area. But due to the sheer size of Jehudi, it's small, something which I really like. To bring to light as well, everything far from the area of view is blackened out, with only blue and orange lights. This includes the area of the battle zone you're not within. Turning to what I would consider the front and back of the maps, you get to either see space or Jupiter itself. This enhances the grand science fantasy aspect of Zone of the Enders. One thing you'll notice when playing the game is that Ada, the AI for Jehudi, constantly speaks. Every time you kill an enemy or the area around you is getting destroyed or you reach a certain amount of health, Ada will take note of it. This makes her AI a constant presence within the game itself, beyond the cutscenes themselves, where in some cases you'll take the direct point of view of Leo within Jehudi. The futuristic music for the game is very great, but the use of it is better in my opinion. When you're walking the battlefield, the music that plays is cautious. There's a danger about, but not a fight you're in. But once one occurs, the music is ready. It's adrenaline pumping and fast. It helps sell the idea that you're in a combat situation. The Tempest boss fight is pretty decent. It's amplified by this theme it has, which has this amazing choir within the middle of it. The choir for me is significant to the boss's theme because of how unholy it makes Tempest feel. Now, along with the boss's design, which is a large mech that is 10 times the size of Jehudi and has an unconventional shape, being that of a squid. This is important visually speaking because most of the mechs within the Zone of the Enders series are humanized through appearance alone. However, for Tempest, the story is different. The large tendrils, the way it ascends and descends. Upon seeing this, you'd be convinced that aliens created this, but no. This abominable weapon of war is man's creation. Following this, the first civilian city mission is horrific. In here, Ada confirms that there's still innocents within the buildings, and it's your task to get rid of the enemies within the area. When going around the area, there will be big survivor text above the buildings. If they happen to get hit by either the player or an enemy, the screen will flash and you'll hear the screams of the innocents as they perish. In this level, the uncomfortable horrors of war that affect civilians are slathered all over the player, and it's well done in my opinion. The menu screen for Zone of the Enders 2 is different from the menu for Zone of the Enders 1. There is no bronze texture or Egyptian text, simply a black and orange version of the very first menu screen accompanied by a metallic ambience. A lot of what applies to Zone of the Enders 1 applies to the second runner, but one thing I'd love to talk about is the Bararam battleship theme. It's amazing, it fits well with the area and the fighting the player will also engage in, as we tear through the enemies within the ship. And finally, the intro themes for both respective games, Beyond the Bounds and Kiss Me Sunlights, are perfect. They're beautiful and nail the idea that Zone of the Enders is this big adventure we're about to go on. Zone of the Enders' atmosphere is a perfect mix of music, sounds, and visuals, and you should play it.